Hey guys, Stephanie here with another live video on Facebook, and today we are going to be talking about the truth about idioms. But first, I have something kind of funny to share with you. I'm gonna basically tell on Renzo. Renzo is my husband, I call him Ren, and this is a hair tie. Can you see it? Hey, you see there's a viewer. Shout out where you're from if you want, and that way I can know who's watching. Anyhow, I'm telling on Renzo. So this is a hair tie, and I bought myself a whole bunch of these for me. And I always used like one or two, and I always had extra. And then Ren decided to grow his hair out. So now he has long hair, and I have long hair. And guess who uses my hair ties? Renzo. But the thing is, his hair is so much thicker than mine that to tie it up, he really has to tie like it really tight. Hey Luis, you caught my live broadcast. Cool. You're from Brazil. Very nice. I'm glad you were able to make it. I don't know if you caught the beginning. I'm going to be telling the truth about idioms in a second, but I'm telling on Renzo first because he has destroyed all of my hair ties, basically. He breaks all of them. This never used to happen, and now I think this is the only one, and like if I want it, like I have to hide it from him because he always finds my hair ties and uses them, and we could just go to the store and buy more. I don't know why we don't, but it's really funny because it's annoying. So I guess it's not funny. But anyhow, let's get to the truth about idioms, because I know that a lot of students or people learning English around the world, this is one of the things they always seem to freak out about. And I had to think about like why would someone freak out about this? But anytime I ask, hey, what do you still feel like you lack, or what are you trying to learn, or what's difficult for you? Everyone always says, oh, the idioms, they drive me crazy, they're so hard, or whatever. And it's because there's so many of them. Literally, there are like thousands of idioms, and a lot of them have origins in specific locations, and they're only used in specific locations. This means that, in the US, we use idioms that are different from people in the UK or in Ireland or in Australia. It's not to say that we don't share any idioms. We absolutely share idioms, but those are the most common idioms that pretty much every English speaker knows. The rest are regional idioms that you shouldn't freak out about because you're never going to need unless you go to Ireland or unless you go to the UK. And even if you're there, you can just ask, what does that mean? I do it all the time. So just to, make this all make sense, I looked up an article that was called Idioms Only the Irish Would Understand, okay? And I was in Ireland, and let me tell you, I barely understood the Irish people. Like, I had to work really hard. I said, what? A lot, because their accent is so different. And it's really funny because Ren and I, now I'm getting off on a tangent, but Ren and I were living with an Irish couple, and when they spoke to us, they would make an effort to speak clearly so we at least would understand them, and we did sometimes. But then when they spoke to themselves, I was like, oh, you guys speak Irish, like the actual Irish dialect? And they're like, no, that was English. And I'm like, no, that was not. Okay, so this is something that we have to accept. There are different accents all over the world, and sometimes you aren't going to understand English speakers, sometimes you will. And when it comes to idioms, they're different everywhere. So as long as you can say, what does that mean? You're good to go. You don't need to know every idiom. Yeah, Louis says it's really hard to understand Irish people. It is. I mean, for me too, okay? It's not just, English learners. It's native English speakers. Even when we were in London, we had a hard time sometimes understanding the people there. And I grew up watching movies that were produced in London, like Sherlock Holmes. I mean, I didn't grow up on that, but doesn't that take place in London? Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, they speak with a British accent. And the thing is, there's so many accents, so don't worry about understanding everything. Anyhow, in this article, idioms that only the Irish would understand, check it out. These are some of their idioms. You could skin a cat out there. You could skin a cat out where? Why? Why would you even think about skinning a cat? That's kind of grotesque, don't you think? I don't know. Apparently, it's a very common Irish idiom, and I don't know what the heck that means. So if I heard it, and maybe I did hear it while I was in Ireland, it probably just went over my head. I was like, okay. Or maybe you understand the idiom from the context that it's placed in. And if you want to, you can just ask, what's that? Another idiom they have is away with the fairies. Again, I don't know what the heck that means. Now, it explains it in the article, and if I really wanted to understand what that meant, I could read the article. But guess what? I don't care. I don't care, because when am I ever going to use that idiom? If I don't know what it means, then that means that the English speakers I speak with, which are not Irish people, they're not going to understand it either. Like, one of my ideas with English, you guys, is that the goal is to be understood. And I once had a student that went crazy with the idioms. She learned like 50,000 idioms. I'm making that up, but a lot. And then when she would talk in class, she would talk in idioms. She would be like, you could skin a cat out there because away with the fairies and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I mean, I know you're speaking English, but I'm the teacher and I don't understand you. So, don't worry about trying to learn all the idioms to sound as native as possible, because for every idiom that is out there, there's a normal way to say it. There is an idiom is basically a phrase that's not taken literally. Well, there's a literal way to say it, and sometimes the literal way is the best way because it's the most clear way. I personally don't use a lot of idioms. I do, like I might say at the drop of a hat, or the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but the idioms, oh my gosh, the idioms, I said apple, and okay. Hang on. Since I asked my cousin who was born in America about some idioms, I learned and received the no to my question whether she uses it in her area or not. Is like only after that. I'm not sure if maybe I read that too fast, if I understand what you were saying. Hang on. I need to read this slowly. Oh, okay, so you have a cousin who was born in the US, you learned some idioms, and then you said, hey, I learned idioms. What do you think about these idioms? And then your cousin said, no, I don't use those. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I understood from your story, and it's completely understandable. So a couple more idioms that I found on this list was not the full shilling. Again, I don't know what that means. And throwing a sausage down O'Connell Street. Now that's funny. Like, if you think about that literally, that's hilarious. I have no idea what that means figuratively, but literally, I know I can imagine what that means. But people use idioms all the time in passing, and the point of all of this is just don't take it so seriously. Just ask, hey, what's that? And don't waste time trying to learn a bajillion idioms that you're never going to use, okay? Go on Google and search, cool. Search the 100 most common idioms. Look over those. If you already know them, you are solid. If you don't, learn them, but then you're good. Like, move on. Do something else with English, because a lot of times we get so caught up in, I need to learn this and I need to learn that, and we don't use the language. Now, I was thinking about this today, and I think that a lot of times people spend 80% of the time being a student and then 20% of the time being a speaker of the language or a user of the language. And I think that needs to be reversed. I think we need to use the language and speak in the language 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time, just look up things you're unsure about. Like if you came across a word you didn't know or something like that. I know a lot of times people will say, oh yeah, I studied English today, I watched 5 series or 5 shows, and it's like, okay, cool, but like make friends online with people. There's so many ways to do this. I'll get into that another time, but actually use the language, because when I watch TV, I don't know about you guys, but like I just absorb it. I'm not necessarily learning unless you're sitting there with pen and paper and you're pausing the show every time they say something new and you're writing it down, and then you're making flashcards and then you're memorizing those. If you're doing that, then you're studying. But if not, you're just watching TV. That's kind of how it is. So definitely make more time to really engage with people. And I made notes just because I was like, I should probably organize my thoughts with what I'm going to say. If you guys have questions for me, definitely go ahead and write them in the chat, even if they're not related to idioms at all, because I'm going to be wrapping up the idiom discussion. But basically, I was going to say, last thing to know is that I have a friend that was born and raised in the same state as me, okay? And when we became friends, the way she would talk was so funny to me, because she would say things and I'd be like, I have no idea what that means. And she goes, you don't know what that means? I'm like, and it's English. It's English, it's an idiom. We're from the same regional area, if you will, but people have different customs. And I don't know how to stress this enough. There's no one English. Like, I speak, hey Hamada, I speak I speak a very neutral English, if you will. Like, I work hard or I don't work hard. Like, I just have good diction. I make an effort to enunciate. But if you actually went to the US, where I'm from, even in my city, you would see people from everywhere, first of all. And everyone speaks differently. There are people that have like a twang in their voice and they're like, hey y'all, howdy y'all, how's it going today? And then there's people that have like a ghetto accent. I'm sorry, I don't know the proper terminology for that. I know that's kind of like the offensive terminology, but they talk like that, and they don't, properly conjugate the verbs when they speak, and everyone speaks the language differently. So my message is and will always be, just embrace the many ways English is spoken and find the way that's comfortable for you, and just express yourself. And if people don't understand you, clarify. If you don't understand people, ask questions. So that's basically the end of my little speech. Does anyone have any questions for me? I know the video I did yesterday was more about my life story, and I feel much more in my element when I'm teaching something rather than when I'm just talking about myself. So I didn't feel as nervous with this video as I did with the other one. But if you guys have any questions about that one or this one. Also, I was going to ask, if you guys can, it would be super, super duper awesome is if you show your support. So like the video or share it with a friend. Like, if you feel like you learned something or people on your Facebook would appreciate learning some of the same information, go ahead and share out this video so more people can see it and get the benefit, because I'm going to be doing more of these helpful videos. And my goal, basically, for those of you who don't know or haven't realized or anything like that, it's just to get people in the world that already have a pretty good level of English, and then up-level them, bring them to the next level, basically. So rather than just watching series in English and really being isolated and by yourself, to get out there and be able to use it, and to not focus on studying it so much, and to just enjoy the language and have fun with it. And I plan on doing this for a really long time, so this is just the beginning, and you guys are probably going to get to know me a lot more. I'll share a lot more tips, and anyhow, that's it. So I'm going to wrap it up. You guys, what would also be cool is if you're in my group, I'd love to know suggestions for future videos. Like, what other things do you guys want to learn? So feel free to comment on this video also. If you're like, hey, could you make a video about this, or could you make a video about that? That would be really cool too. If you need me to slow down sometimes, if I talk too fast, we can talk about it. I'll try a little bit. But also my goal with these videos is to just be normal and talk to you like I would talk to any other English speaker. Because if you can keep up, that's awesome. If you can't keep up, then it gives you something to strive towards. I don't want to be like the English teacher that like slows everything down and makes it like boring, because that's boring and nobody wants to do that. No, I'm just kidding. No, that works especially for people that are going from basic English to intermediate English, but I'm hoping that, people that are attracted to my style of coaching and teaching are people that are already sort of intermediate, striving towards advanced, or advanced already. Anyhow, guys, I could keep going, but I probably shouldn't. So it was wonderful sharing this thing, this moment with you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for chatting. Next time, come prepared with questions, and that way you can just say, oh, I've been wanting to ask for this, and you can put it in there. It's really fun when I get to interact with you guys and share stuff. So don't be shy. Feel free to ask. And my phone just said low battery, so now I really have to get off. All right, see you guys later. Bye.